G'day YouTubers, I will preview this week's AFL games. Before I start, it will be appreciated if you can subscribe to my channel. Please help me get to 1,000 subscribers. My summary of my round 7 votes are: for the first game, I tipped Melbourne to beat Richmond. The Demons won easily by 40 odd points. The second game, I tipped Collingwood to beat Essendon on Anzac Day. Unfortunately, the game was a draw, so incorrect. The third game, on a Friday night, I tipped the Giants to beat Brisbane in Canberra. Correct. Woohoo! For the fourth game, I tipped the Power to beat the Saints. Yeah, got that correct. The fifth game, I tipped the Crows to beat Nth Melbourne. The Crows smashed them by 60 odd points. That was a no-brainer. Easy. The next game, I tipped the Cats to beat Carlton. Geelong won in the close game by 10 points, so woohoo, got that right. On Saturday night, I tipped Fremantle to beat the Doggies. Got that right as well. You beauty. The first game on Sunday, I tipped the Gold Coast Suns to beat West Coast. Got that right. Woohoo. And Harley Reid didn't play in that game. And the last game on Sunday, I tipped the Swans to beat Hawthorn. The Swans won by 60 odd points. Got that right. Woohoo. Therefore, I selected 8 out of 9 games correct. And therefore, my total in 2024 season is I have 44 votes. The first game of the week is between the Adelaide Crows and Port Adelaide in the local showdown. The game is played on Thursday night at Adelaide Oval. There are some players in the mix for both sides. The players in the mix for Crows are Murphy and Curtin, who both played in the SANFL, and Smith, to return from back injury. For the Power, the players in the mix are Ryan Burton, Louis, and Evans. The players injured for the Crows are Sloan and Philful, and both Miller and Murray to an ACL knee injury. For the Power, Rosie is injured out with a hammy, Lord is injured, Aaliyah out with concussion, and Powell Pepper injured with an ACL knee injury. Last week, the Power beat St Kilda and the Crows beat the Kangaroos, where the game will be won. Looking at the ruck midfield between both sides, for the Crows, you have O'Brien, Dawson, Crouch, Laird and Saligo against Sweet, Butters, Horne-Francis, Wine and Drew. Given the experience that O'Brien has, you expect him to win the ruck hit-outs, but when the ball goes on the ground, you expect the port midfielders of Butters and Horne-Francis, who have that inside and outside explosiveness, and Wines and Drew as a 2 midfield ball to win this area. So I expect the Power midfield to overrun the Crows midfield. Based on this, I'm going to tip the Power to win the game. They've got more quality in midfield. However, if the Crows midfield can even this position and give more forward 50 entries to Fogarty and Walker, this may change the game. I expect the Power midfield to overrun the Crows midfield with their class that they have in the midfield. The next game is between Carlton and Collingwood on a Friday night at the MCG. There are some players in the mix for both sides. For the Blues, Motlop and Moy will be under consideration, whereas for the Magpies, McRae, Johnson and Dean will be under consideration. The players injured for the Blues are McGowan and Sard, and both Doherty and Sawani out with an ACL knee injury, whereas for the Magpies, Kruger is injured, McSay is still recovering from a knee injury, and Murphy has retired due to concussion. Last week, Carlton lost to Geelong by 10 points, and Collingwood due to Essendon on Anzac Day. Looking at the ruck midfield setup of both sides, for Carlton, you have not in ruck with Cripps, Kennedy, Sarah and Walsh, whereas for the Magpies, you have Darcy Cameron in ruck with Nick Dacos, Mitchell, DeGoe and Pendlebury. Just looking at the balance of the 2 midfields, Cal's got good inside midfield like your Cripps and Kennedy, whereas the Magpies got a mixture of both, where Mitchell will be getting on the inside balls, and you got DeGoe and Nick Dacos and Pendlebury with his leg kicking on the outside. So therefore, looking at the position of the midfield ruck set for both sides, Collingwood has more class in the middle, and therefore Collingwood is starting to come back to their fitness and all that, given that they were up behind every team in the pre-season. And for this game, of the sheer difference of Collingwood's midfield, I'm going to tip the Magpies to win this game. The next game is the New South Wales derby between Sydney and the GWS Giants. The players in the mix for the Swans are Laddams, Francis and Sansky, whereas for the Giants, the players that are under consideration are Haynes, Keith and Fahy. The players injured for the Swans are Parker and Mills. The players that are injured for the Giants are Taylor under concussion, Cogniglio and last year's first rounder drafted in the league. Last week, the Giants beat the Brisbane Lions and the Swans beat Hawthorn on Sunday. Looking at the ruck midfield setup for both sides, in ruck for the Swans, you have Grundy in ruck with the followers of Jordan, Rowbottom, Chadbourne and Gordon, compared to the Giants' ruck midfield set of Bricks in ruck with Tom Green, Kelly, Whitfield and Callahan. Both teams have excellent midfield, and given that the game is played at SCG, this will suit the Swans because it's their home and their midfielders like to play a hard contested possession. And based on the numbers that both teams have, so you got the midfield ball Green for the Giants against Jordan, and you have Rowbottom and Chad Warner who can play inside and outside. Kelly's and Whitfield are more good on the outside, and Callaghan, it's his 3rd year, so he's still learning. And Gordon, one of the best elite kickers I've ever seen. Based on the Swans midfield, they've got so much quality and they can cut you apart. And also, they've got Heaney, and he's doing so good this season, and he kicked 3 goals last week. Therefore, based on looking at the ruck midfield setup and the Swans quality, I'm tipping the Swans to win this derby, or as they call it, the Battle of the Bridge. The next game is between St Kilda and North Melbourne. The players in the mix for the Saints are Jones, Hayes and Dow, whereas the players that are going to be considered for the Kangaroos are Shields, Taylor and Stevenson. The players injured for the Saints are King, Butler, Henry, Clark, Wood, and both Higgins and Webster to suspension. For the Kangaroos, the players injured are Colin Jones, Logue and Goda for all of this season. Last week, the Saints lost to the Power and North Melbourne lost to the Crows. So both teams lost to the 2 South Australian sides. Looking at the ruck midfield analysts between both sides, in ruck and midfield for the Saints you have Marshall ruck with the followers of Ross, Hill, Steele and Windhager, compared to the Kangaroos of Xeri in ruck with Davis, Juniaki, Machercha, Simpkin and Phillips. If you look at the North's midfield, they've still got young players in there. So you have Will Phillips, who's only been the assistant for 3 or 4 years, and the captain Simpkins, I think he's been there for 7 years. Machercha, first-year player from Tasmania, and David Shiniaki, who was an early draft pick from 5 or 6 years ago. The North Melbourne are building a midfield, which is part of their rebuilding that's happening at the moment. So I expect the Saints to be more strong than the Kangaroos in this area. They've just got more experienced players in the midfield. Based on that, I'm going to tip the Saints to beat the Kangaroos, and unfortunately, the Kangaroos will remain winless. The next game is a cracker between Melbourne and Geelong at the MCG. The players in the mix for the Demons are Tomlinson, Fullerton and potentially McAdam for his first ever game for the club since his trade from the Crows. The players in the mix for the Cats are Cam Guthrie and Stewart, returned from concussion. The players injured for the Demons are Hunter, Bowie, Salem and Melsham. The players injured for the Cats are Edwards, Dangerfield and Furphy. Last week, Demons beat Richmond and the Cats beat the Blues, so both teams won their games last week. Looking at the ruck midfield setup of the D's and Geelong, in ruck for Melbourne, you have Gawn, Oliver, Winey, Petrarca and Sparrow against Blickaz, Holmes, Henry, Duncan and Clark. On paper, the Melbourne midfield looks a class above with their All-Australian players in Trucker and Oliver, and you have the hard ball in Winey. If the Cats can even this position, they've got a great chance because the Cats' strength is their full line. Last week, they were so efficient. They had less inside 50s than Carlton, but their efficiency was 16%, a lot better than Carlton. Technically, when the ball goes in the Cats' forward line, they punish it and score. They're just so good with their conversion rate and they make teams pay. If the Geelong midfield can even the Melbourne's midfield, I reckon the Cats will win because their full line is more points. So you compare the Cats' full line of Cameron and Hawkins with Stengel and Close compared to Melbourne's young forwards of Van Rooyen and Petty, who's a defender. There's a class difference between the 2 All-Australian forwards in Geelong compared to Melbourne. Given that, I'm going to expect the Geelong's midfield to match the Demons' midfield, and I'm going to tip the Cats to win this game. The next game is between West Coast and Essendon, held at Optus Stadium. There are some players in the mix for this week. For the Eagles, the players in the mix are Barras, Reid and Gaff. For the Bombers, players in the mix are Tisastas, Shield and Golfi. The players injured for the Eagles are Allen, Flynn, Hewitt and Bazzo. The players injured for the Bombers are Ridley, Zach Reid, Menzies and Baldwin. Last week, West Coast lost to the Gold Coast Suns and the Bombers drew to Collingwood on Anzac Day. In looking at the ruck midfield setup for both sides, for the Eagles you have Williams in ruck with Gimby, Kelly, Yeo, Chesser against Essendon's of Goldstein in ruck with Martin, Codwell, Merritt and Setterfield. The Eagles have a balance of, a mixture I should say, of experienced and young players. So you've got the youngsters, second-year players in Chesser and Gimby, and then you've got the experience in Tim Kelly and Yeo. Whereas Essendon, I've got a experienced or mid to experienced players in the midfield with Martin, Caldwell, Merritt and Setterfields, who have been in the system for at least 6 years. So based on this, the Eagles have young midfielders, and you also have Bailey Williams. I expect the Bombers to dominate in this position. Therefore, looking at Essendon's midfield, I expect the midfielders of Essendon to dominate and have enough inside 50s for their forwards to kick a winning score. And hence, I will choose the Bombers to beat West Coast Eagles. But they will get Reid back, who does have a bit of class, even though he's only played 6 out of 4 games. The next game is between Richmond and Fremantle at the MCG. The players in the mix for the Tigers are Sonzi, Cumberland and Kosicki. For the Dockers, Amos and Sturt are both in contention to play this week. The players injured for the Tigers, significant players, got like Taranto, Lynch, Ross and Gibcus, whereas Cox, McDonald and Corbett are all injured for the Fremantle Dockers. In looking at the midfielder and ruck for both sides, for the Tigers you have Nankervis in ruck with Pickett, Banks, Baker and Rowsmith, compared to Frio's ruck midfield setup of Darcy in ruck with Young, Sarong, Brayshaw and Nat 5. Just in comparing, Nankervis and Darcy will be pretty even in the midfield. This is where you look at Richmond's depth. So you've got young players like your Rowsmith and Banks against class players like your 5 and Sarong, who came top 5 in last year's Brownlow, Young and Brayshaw. Based on Richmond's large injury list, I expect the Fremantle midfield to dominate in this position, because you've got gun players like your Brayshaw, Sarong and 5 against some of the Richmond youngsters, and I'm expecting Fremantle to provide a lot of inside 50s for their forwards. And if Amos comes back from injury, one of the elite kickers in terms of goal kicking. Based on Richmond's depth and limited players available of their long-term injury, I'm going to stick the Dockers to win this game. The next game is between the Bulldogs and Hawthorn, played at Marvel Stadium. The players in the mix for the Bulldogs are McNeil, Sanders, and for the Hawks, players in the mix are D'Ambrosio, Sarong and Wingard. The players injured for the Bulldogs are Caulfield and Bailey Smith. For the Hawks, the players injured are Genga Barras, Watson, CJ and James Blanc. Last week, the Bulldogs lost to Fremantle, whereas the Hawks got smashed by Sydney by over 10 goals. Looking at the ruck midfield setup for both sides, in ruck for the Bulldogs you have English with the midfield trios of Bontempelli, Treloar, Libba and McRae, and for the Hawks you have Meek in ruck with the followers of Newcombe, Weddle, Warple and McKenzie. If you look at the two midfield, English has experience over me, so you expect English to win the hitouts, and then the midfield of the Bulldogs shot first class players. Top 5 player in Bontempelli, Treloar who's a gun, and you've got the hard working tackling machine Libba and Jackson McRae. Whereas Hawthorn, they've got still young players in terms of experience wise like Newcombe, Warpel, who have played less than 80 games, and youngsters in Weddle and McKenzie. And I know games are not one on paper, but just looking on paper, you expect the Bulldogs ruck midfield to just absolutely dominate in this position. And therefore, based on the experience that the Bulldogs have, they're going to provide so much inside 50 to their forwards, and I'm going to tip the Bulldogs to win this game. The next game is between Brisbane and Gold Coast, played on the Sunday evening. This is the local derby. The players in the mix for the Lions are Jared Lyons and Pryor. The players in consideration for the Suns are Cashbolt, Sexton and Ellis. The players injured for the Lions are Bailey, Devon Robinson, and knee injuries to Coleman, Dode and Ashcroft, whereas the players injured for the Suns are Roses Jr. and Weller. Last week, the Lions lost to GWS Giants, whereas the Suns beat West Coast Eagles. Looking at the ruck midfield setup for both sides, for the Lions, 4 in ruck with the followers of McCluggage, Neil, Dudley and Jared Berry, whereas the Suns, you've got Witts in ruck with Anderson, Rao, Miller and Flanders. Based on the experience and the quality of the player, I expect Witts to dominate in ruck against Darcy 4. Looking at the followers for Brisbane, they are more elite at this stage in their career. McCluggage against Anderson and Rao, who are potential future gun players, but they're still developing. And you got Neil, who's a 2-time Brownlow medal, and Josh Dunkley, who's a premiership player with the Western Bulldogs in 2016, and Berry, who's a good player as well. And compared to the Suns, we got Flanders, who's playing in his first proper season in midfield, and Tuke Miller, who's their gun midfielder, a former All-Australian. So based on just experience and the skill sets, I expect the Lions to win the midfield. And based on this, if the Lions have enough forward inside 50 entry, the key forwards in Danaher and Hipwood will have plenty of opportunities to score goals. And you've got the small forwards in Cameron as well, who also take advantage. Based on the lineup, and I know games are not one on paper, I'm going to tip the Lions to win this game. My summary for the round 8 votes are Port Adelaide to beat the Crows on a Thursday night showdown, Collingwood to beat Carlton, the Swans to beat the Giants in the Battle of the Bridge derby, the Saints to easily beat North Melbourne, Geelong to beat Melbourne, the Bombers to beat West Coast out of the stadium. I expect the Dockers to beat Richmond at MCG, the Bulldogs to beat Hawthorn, and in the Q Clash Derby, I expect the Lions to beat Gold Coast. That's the end, and thanks for watching. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment on my channel. Every subscriber will be appreciated.